Hello, I'm here with Mark Anderson, Cage Chairman, to talk about a few things that haven't really been discussed fully since the announcement that Kingstonian will play at Leatherhead next season. I wanted to try and divide this into 4 sections. In a minute we'll come to the Leatherhead groundshare specifically. After that we'll talk about the future ground and proposals for a permanent home. And after that we'll talk about the future of Kingstonian in more general terms. But first, Mark, I wanted to start with talking about this conversation right now, about why we didn't have a public meeting, why there's been a perceived lack of communication from the chairman to fans, and if you can talk to us a little bit about why the confidential matters are so confidential and the frustrations that brings. So if we could start with this conversation right now, why wasn't there a public meeting? Why has communication been perceived to be so bad?
Firstly, I'd apologise if people do think that that is the case. We felt that we needed to move forward with making a decision on next season, and we needed to do that because we were talking to lots of different clubs about facilities and about the possibility of a groundshare, and we did that within the board itself, and we really didn't feel that a public meeting was necessary for that. And what you have to understand with Kingstonian, and we received some feedback on priorities from the supporters club, but there are only 300, 400 of us as we keep being told, but there must be 250, 300 different opinions. So we had to try and find a solution that fitted the bill as best we could. We know that is not the perfect solution for everybody. We understand that, and I do have to say it's some small pain now with a longer term gain at the end of it.
But regardless of the actual decision that was made, there was talk that we'd have an announcement at this date. We didn't get that announcement, and it had to wait and wait. Do you understand fans' frustrations over the putting back?
Certainly, I do, and we were getting as frustrated as everybody else. We had another option that we had to sign some document saying we couldn't expose who it was and where it was. We were so far down the road of getting agreement with that, and then almost at the 11th hour they pulled out. That created an issue, but we already had this option also, and we felt it right to make the decision then. We know that any ground share has to be notified to the league by the end of March.
Okay, I mean, one of the problems with a lack of communication is the lack of this kind of conversation, so we appreciate you taking the time to have this, and I think we'll cover a lot of ground here. You hinted there that someone pulled out at the last minute, so if we can go on to talking about the Leatherhead groundshare particularly, given that fans have expressed a clear preference for proximity to Kingston, what were the reasons for selecting Leatherhead over the other grounds? Obviously, someone's pulled out.
What you need to understand is the following. We received something from the supporters club that very clearly, a couple of emails said number 1 was playing on a Saturday afternoon, number 2 was close proximity to Kingston. I explored a lot of different options and went to a lot of different grounds, met with a lot of different clubs with different appetites to have us as a ground share. In some instances, stuff I've seen, the ground grading at these facilities wasn't good enough for Ryman Premier. So what we would be actually doing in effect is paying quite a lot of money to upgrade someone else's ground for possibly a year or 2 years to give back to them as the benefit, and we didn't think that was the best way forward.
So that said, I mean, amongst my friends we had a little sweepstake about where we thought we were going to be playing in the next season. No one thought Leatherhead.
Yeah.
Do you think that do you think the surprise and, dare I say, opposition to Leatherhead would be as big as it seems to be?
I have to say no. I didn't think it would be as hard against it as it has been, but I do think that there is a final realisation which is impacting upon it that we're moving, and it is the end of our time at Kingsmeadow anyway. And I think underriding everything else is the view that we are moving out of there. There is a finality to it now, and that I think also I think no matter where we went, there would be some opposition at this time.
Because it's real now.
Because it's real, and it's because, I mean, what people have to understand in all of this is that 11 years ago, I had a phone call from the then chairman's financial officer, Jimmy's financial officer, telling me they had no money in the bank to be able to pay the wages. I lent them that money, and the result was the Surrey Senior Cup win. During the course of that summer, Kingstonian and Jimmy Cochran and we did a deal, Malcolm Winwright and I. The club was £100,000 in debt, most of it owed to the Inland Revenue. It was on the process of starting to be wound up. Since that point to now, we've had 11 fairly okay years. We've had a promotion, we've had a cup win, we've remained competitive throughout, and we've had 2 goes at the playoffs, and I think we have done pretty well without going mad at it. We have treated the club, I think, with respect. I think we've treated the fans with respect. We have not treated the club as a plaything where we throw somebody in, someone says something nasty to us and we head for the hills. We've been in it for the long term, and now we've gone from minus 100,000 to, at the end of this, we will have a club with assets of over £1 million. Now, in non-league terms, that is something I think that should be applauded and understood fully. So any ideas that this club is going bankrupt or there's a problem in terms of finance, they are so far off the mark, it's untrue.
Okay, we'll come back to some of these general future of Kingstonian things, but I just want to go over things a little bit first. What can you tell us about the actual financial deal for Leatherhead for next season? I presume you can't tell us a higher fee, but what's the details about stewarding, about how much revenue we get from the T-bar or the general bar?
We are paying a fee to lease the ground. They are providing everything themselves, the bar, the T-bar, the whole 9 yards of stuff. We don't have to clean it afterwards, we don't have to do anything. They're doing all of that included in the lease fee for the season. There isn't profit in it for us from the bar at Leatherhead or from that, because it would just be too hard to manage and understand. So for this season, it's just basic all-in price.
And for this season coming, presumably no open events where we, at the moment, we have access to a room at Kingsmeadow 3 or 4 times a season. But
I think, I mean, if you note that the facilities at Leatherhead are a lot smaller than ours, if we're going to do things, then we're going to do them in Kingston itself.
Okay, so it's a 1-year deal with an option to renew.
Yeah.
At what point do we decide to renew, and what will be the determining factors for that decision?
We will start making those sorts of decisions around about Christmas time for the next season. We've got a very good relationship already with the guys at Leatherhead who understand our position, and of course what's key is progress at Chessington Golf Centre and a couple of other projects that we've got in the pipeline as well.
Okay, we'll talk about Chessington in a tick, but just to finish off this leaving Kingsmeadow part, what do we get to take from Kingsmeadow? Is there any memorabilia, any kind of relic of what was the ground that we built from Richmond Road? Do we get to sign the honours board? I presume they come with us. Anything else?
They do. The contents of the club shop, everything else. Malcolm is having a conversation with Eric Samuelson at AFC Wimbledon as to what is ours and what is not ours. They were excellent before, and that in terms of making sure we get what we're due.
Okay.
What is ours.
So you've mentioned Chessington. It seems like the right time to move on to that and talk generally about the ground having a future ground of our own forever. But talking about Chessington specifically, given that the recent London Mayor's remarks about securing and protecting the Greenbelt and also the noises coming out of Kingston Council, how much less likely is the Chessington plans than when it was first announced, or does the Chessington plans on Chessington Golf Course still have legs?
Still has legs, very much so. It hasn't changed from where we were before. We have a meeting with the developer in a week on Friday, and we'll have more information and a clearer picture of what progress has been made. We spoke to them last week and met them last week. What is absolutely clear is that there is an understanding that there is green belt there, but there's also the council have been very clear in telling us what we need to do, both the developer, their support people and us, in terms of creating a situation that will allow us to build on that, and that's extra circumstances above and beyond what would normally be acceptable for planning. We have to go that
extraordinary
circumstances.
But do you feel it's taken longer than it should have? Is progress slower?
Progress has been slow, yes, there's been absolutely no doubt about that. It has been slow.
But that's still very much plan A, and all the efforts of the chairmen are
yes.
focused on this.
Yes.
What consideration has been given to the existence of Chessington Hook United in amongst this?
I've had a lot of meetings now with Andrew Ellis from Chessington and Hook, who's chairman. They have given us their support, and currently, just as an aside, 4 or 5 of our under-18s from last season are playing in their first team. We're getting very good and close relationship with Chessington and Hook. We like them very much. We are incredibly aware of what happens when a magpie sits in your nest, and we would not be following our values if we did the same to somebody else.
And is it the plan that Chessington Hook would play their games in a shared stadium if that was to happen in Chessington?
At the moment, it's not, but we are talking about it. What Chessington have got are problems with their first team pitch due to drainage in the winter months, and of course we would be giving them the opportunity to play on our new 3-4G surface if we can get it next door at the golf centre. I'm involved. I sit on the Growth Committee at Kingston Council, so I'm aware of the commitment to have a 3G pitch from the council within the borough. Is this conversations you've been having with the council that this will be the borough's 3G pitch? I've got to say that the borough have been very supportive. The leader of the council and Malcolm Winwright have been looking at various sites. They've gone right around Kingston looking for suitable sites. That written in the plan already is for a swimming pool in that part of Kingston, and this would work very well as a 3-4G pitch for them in the borough as well. Okay,
so that's very much plan A, but humour me if you will, and let's assume that Chessington can't happen.
Right.
Is there a plan B or a plan C? And if so, what can we know about it?
Okay, we have a plan B, a plan C, and interestingly, after a meeting with Kevin Davis, the leader of Kingston Council, a potential D and E as well, if you want to go that far. What we have to make, the important call we have to make is that at some point in the future, we will know whether this golf centre has legs or not, as you rightly pointed out. At that point, if it has, we carry straight on with it. If it hasn't, we move on to B, C, D and E. What we are most mindful of is the fact that a club does not prosper when it's in rented accommodation for too long. Non-league football is such now that for any non-league team to survive, it has to have money revenue generation schemes that are outside just game money. And that needs a ground, and it needs an asset, a 4G pitch that's used, paid rent for. It needs a bar, it needs a function facility that we can rent out. Because the football itself, unfortunately, just doesn't stand up on its own.
So, if Plan A is Chessington and we have the revenue streams that a ground or would give us, do we assume that Plans B through E aren't full ownership of a ground?
They would not be full ownership of a ground.
And that's why all the eggs are in this basket.
Well,
the majority of the eggs.
The choice eggs are in the basket. The other eggs are it would be some sort of development together, with another club.
Okay, I realise that you might not be able to give explicit answers to these questions, but what conversations have been had with Kingston University, with Kingston Grammar School, with Tiffins about, or Kingston Rugby Club to share facilities with those entities, non-football club entities?
Again, Malcolm Winwright, the leader of the council, we have been in contact with an awful lot of these facilities. The cost of development, the type of development, and the fact that we have to accept it, a lot of people just don't want us. So, because football, it's perceived, it brings noise, it brings traffic, it brings crowds, it brings potential trouble. And there is a fear from a lot of people that they lose their identity with having what they perceive, in reality it's not right, but what they perceive as a bigger animal coming into their territory.
Moving away from Chessington back to Kings Meadow for a minute, there's two scenarios we haven't spoken about yet. One is in the context of the imminent investment on the rebuild of the athletic stadium. What conversations have been had about making that our long-term home?
Okay, we've had a conversation this last week about the athletic stadium, and we are investigating that now. The issue in the short term for us to say move there next season, it's a no-no because the pitch isn't big enough. The changing rooms are multi-purpose. They're not separate. It would take all the money that we're going to get to develop that for a year, 2 years. The pitch itself is not good. We need to move the hammer and the throwing area, and it's there primarily, as we all know, for athletics.
But it's an option that you're looking at.
It's definitely something that is back now on the table, but only really recently. Okay.
And also at Kings Meadow, but at the football stadium, what conversations have been had with Chelsea about Kings Meadow being our home again after AFC Wimbledon returned?
We have not had a conversation with Chelsea at all. What we did have was a conversation via Wimbledon, because we're not dealing with Chelsea. Let's make that really clear. We asked Wimbledon if they could ask Chelsea if we could stay, and were told no.
And that's no forever? No,
that was no, I think, at least until Wimbledon move out. At that point, we can have we would love to have a conversation with them, but there was nothing really positive that came out of the no. It was a very firm no for the next couple of seasons. So I think we just need to monitor that and just see what happens.
So the door on that isn't closed forever. So at the moment it sounds like there's 7 options that we have, with Chesterton being very much the first Premier option.
I'm awfully more enthusiastic about where we sit than I was 3 or 4 months ago, I have to say that. And that is, but the hard work is still to be done, both with the golf centre and planning, and with the other ideas, more than ideas, but other potential projects that are around there.
My feeling is that amongst the fans is that Chessington is certainly one of the most preferable solutions. What can Kingstonian fans do to make this more of a likelihood? Do we just have to wait for powers that are out of our control, or is there anything we can do?
You can certainly do that. As I said to you, we have to find extraordinary circumstances. It is absolutely vital we start writing in your own individual capacity to your local council, councillors, to the council, to James Berry, your local MP, saying what a great idea this is, what a great community club we are, and how beneficial it would be having our own stadium within the borough of Kingston again.
And how much do you feel that the borough lines are the important thing within this? For example, and this isn't up for grabs, but if we were at Met Police, not inside the borough but nearer to Kingston Town, then Chessington is.
It's an interesting question. Are we a borough team, Kingstonian, or are we a town team? I think that's in a nutshell what you're asking. I think to be a town team in KT1, house land prices, etc., make that very, very difficult. I think if we're a borough team, there is a bigger catchment and more of an opportunity for us. So I would favour borough, but I'm not arguing against us being a town team either.
Of course. Let's talk about the future of Kingstonian away from just the ground itself, although obviously this will be integral to every answer, I'd assume. Is there a marketing budget at Kingstonian, and if so, how much will that change to get people to Leatherhead next season? And will there be any marketing time and money moved to south of the borough as opposed to Kingston Town to make that happen?
There is a marketing budget, a small marketing budget. Most of what we generate goes, like every other football team, to pay wages, players' wages. But yes, we are aware of this, the geographical shift, and things will be done. What I would love, and what we sat in this room having a board meeting about not long ago, was getting more people involved, either on the board or on a sales and marketing committee. So this is another plea to you guys. Please come and help us, because I can see the anxiety, I can see the hurt, I can see the anger in some, but if all we're reading is negativity, then we've got to do something positive out of this, and I would love to be able to get more people involved, people with a marketing and a sales strategy to help us to develop the club.
Good to hear.
Let's do something about it. Let's try and get the fans engaged in this.
I didn't want to make any of this conversation about what's happening on the pitch at the moment, but I will ask this question. Could the club survive if we were in Ryman 1 South next season?
Yes, we can. Of course we can. We can survive in Ryman 1 South. You're feeling let down, I'm feeling let down, I'm feeling let down by much of what we've talked about this evening. I'm feeling let down by a team that is underperforming, and mistakes have been made, both with the management, the board, and some with the spectators as well. And I feel that in particular the players really need to step up and get us out of this. They're good players, and we are underperforming, there is no doubt about it.
Alright, well, let's assume we are in the Ryman Premier. And
let's assume that.
Do we expect the playing budget to increase or reduce when we're away from Kingsmeadow or Kingston? And do we have use of the money from Wimbledon to put towards playing budget, and should we do that if we do?
Yeah, good questions. The reality is there is a small amount, a portion of each of the money we receive that can be used for playing matters, but it was important that we ring-fence the vast majority of it for ground development, and that is still the case. But we are aware that numbers will not be the same at Leatherhead as they have been traditionally at Kingston. That is the fear. Therefore, it is important that we use a portion of it to help the budget and help us be successful.
You mentioned earlier about the financial situation of the club. We're a sustainable business entity now in a way that we weren't a decade ago.
Absolutely. I mean, I cannot emphasise that enough. Look, the other areas that absolutely need to be talked about now is that we need, moving forward, we have to be 100% this community club. Okay? Now, for the last 8 or 9 years, it has been very hard to get the youth section involved with us. They had a seat on the board, but the two things were kept apart. Why they separated in the first place was exactly the right reason. Colin Denman did a great job in getting it removed as Kingstonian went bust in 2002, whenever it was. But we're moving heaven and earth now to get the youth section back within the main club. We have a situation at the moment where we have very, very good players. I've touched on it already. They get to 18. They're not big and robust enough to play in the Ryman Premier team, but there's nowhere for them to go. They are playing as Kingstonian from the age of 7 through to 18. That Kingstonian brand has a value. Similarly with the women's team, they're struggling to find sponsorship, finance. I've got a meeting with them in the next week to actually sit down and bring them back within the main club. We've worked really hard on Dinton Fields, and now we have John Fenwick sits on the board of the Dinton Fields Trust, and that is the base for our youth section. The women's section play down in Ham at the moment, the women's team, but it's important that we bring all these things together and create one good community club going forward.
And that community club can be a director-owned community club as opposed to the CBC structure, which went to referendum, which was rejected by the fans.
Yes. It will have to be in the short term. Would I like to revisit fan ownership or part fan ownership at some point? I'd certainly like to revisit it. Yeah, that was a mistake we made this year, there's no doubt about it. We did try to do too much at once, and it was perceived as us throwing a hospital pass out the side, if you want to use rugby league as an example, and it was never meant to be that. It was badly timed, I have to admit that. I don't think we did that well with the timing of it, and some of the information could have been more elaborate. But the reality is, taking such a volume of money, we all thought it important to get you involved. I mean, we're not a board of directors. There's not a fake tan amongst any of us. Where John is more of a Farah trousing wearing man than an Armani suit man. The most colourful thing about Malcolm Winwriter is socks. You know, I sit there and I jump up and down and get excited, but we're just ordinary guys who work bloody hard for this football club. And there is no agenda. There is no us running for the hills with money, etc., etc. That is just not on the case. What we want to do is make this club very, very successful.
So if we were to come back to the idea of community ownership, what would be, and have a second referendum, talk about second referendums a lot nowadays, but what would be the conditions that would trigger this second referendum, do you see?
Well, I think in the short to medium term it wouldn't be a great idea, because at this precise moment in time, the developer for Chessington, for example, the people with the other 2 or 3 projects that we're now looking at, they can identify and they can send an email or make a phone call with one of 3 of us. And I think at this precise time, to get some momentum and movement going forward, that would be the thing. But what we've got to understand here is the following. I'm sleepless nights with it now still, I'm afraid. And it was when Gary Eakin very eloquently and rightly stood up in that meeting we referred to and said, you know, you've got to understand there's only 200, 300, 400 of us now, blah, 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 when you can't even find people to dig the pitch, to fork the pitch at the end of the game. And people applauded that. And I just thought, well, that's awful, really, because if we can't find help to do that, then what are we all doing it for? So again, I'm asking the question, that is not something to be proud of. We want people to get involved with us. Please come and help.
So we'll put an email in this video, but so there's a middle ground between...
There is a middle ground. There's the German model, where you have a board of directors and you have involvement from the fans at the same time. A couple of things need to happen. At the moment, we've already touched on it. There are about 8 different fans groups at the moment, ranging from the official supporters club through what we loosely call the boys behind the goal, through the PKK, whatever, and it goes on and on. So, you know, what I think we need in the first instance, rather than just say, look, here it is, off you go, come in, get involved with the sales and marketing committee to try and attract some more fans. We're desperate for people on the board to widen the expertise we've got, and then let's do it step by step. And that's where we went wrong. We just went, there you go, how about that?
We talked about the finances of the club, but would you like to take this opportunity to talk about, to provide clarity of the directors' finances? I've read stuff, but I've never downloaded the company profile of Company's House. So where are you with the money that directors have put in? I presume nothing's coming out in that sense.
No, nothing's come out. If you look at Malcolm and myself, over the last 11 years, we must have put over £300,000 in the club. And you can do that by a series of loans, you can also do it by a series of sponsorships. So you don't want the loan figure to look ridiculous, so what we do is some sponsorship. So we sponsor the travel, we sponsor the names on the shirts. We've all had goes at doing that, but there is absolutely nothing to hide in any of the accounts. You know, there really isn't. The club doesn't generate enough cash to pay the players. Where you think we're trying to get money out of it is just beyond me.
This is probably the most significant few years in Kingstonian's history.
Yeah.
What's the plan? What's the plan for the next 5 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years' time? And ultimately, who's responsible other than yourself for delivering that?
Okay. Apart from the current board of directors, there is no one else responsible for delivering it. We are the board that delivers what will happen. In 5 years' time, I want to be in our own facility. I want to have a 4G pitch. I want to have a clubhouse that we can rent out. I want to sweat that 4G pitch with everyone playing on it. I want to be at the heart of the community in terms of our youth setup and in terms of our women's teams. And I want huge amounts of fans' involvement in what we're doing.
And
is that too much to
well, it's a nice dream. But what constitutes failure there? What if we don't have that?
What constitutes failure? Failure will be that, in my view, in 5 years' time, we haven't made any progress on those fronts.
But you're confident it can happen.
I'm always confident it can happen. It can happen.
Okay. It's quite a comprehensive set of questions and quite candid answers. So thanks for your time today, Mark.
Well, thank you, and thanks. I mean, you guys that are going to watch this, it might be long, but I hope you get a feel of it, and I hope you get a feel for what we're trying to achieve.
All right. Thanks for your time today, Mark.
Cheers.
Cheers.